I always find it interesting how most Americans are against the free market, and I think there's an issue that it's not just Democrats, but Republicans themselves, because Republicans say, oh, the free market's not good enough, you have to manage it, and you have to fuck with it, and mess with it, and Democrats are like, oh, the free market is too much for the rich and wealthy and corporations. And let me ask you a question. I mean, people think that for some reason the free market is like 100% out for the wealthy, and people think, oh, well, the free market's out to fuck the poor and out to help the rich. Let me ask you a question. Do we have a free market in America? No, we do not, and we never have, and I doubt we ever will. However, I will still fight for my ideal, but let me ask you another question. Are there any countries in the world that have a free market? If there are any, then I would be very shocked. I don't think there are any countries in the world that truly have a free market. And when you think about it, the current situation of the wealthy and powerful corporations and banks and the millionaires and billionaires in America being given all of the advantages is not a free market. It's rather a market where a government will give the people who already have the stand up with wealth to actually help boost them up more, and that's not a free market. I mean, do you call a free market when a corporation like General Motors, Ford, GE, Chrysler, banks, or anything fuck up that the government bails them out? No, that's not a free market. So how do we know that a free market doesn't work if we've never had one? I mean, think about it. This is not a free market. It's a market. It's a market for the richest and most powerful people in America. Warren Buffett said it, right? He's the richest guy in the world right now. He said that he pays 14% taxes out of his income, and his secretary pays 37%. Very interesting. Does that seem like a free market, a fair system? Not at all. It's not a free market, and when you think about things, how can we say that the free market doesn't work for everyone if we've never had a free market? Exactly, you can't. And the free market, I think, will naturally balance itself out. It's like, as we are in America, we've been balanced enough to be one of the richest and most powerful countries for a long time. So our system obviously is not the worst system in the world, and it's obviously at least somewhat close to being a fair system. So since we give the people up more of an up, and we kind of just let the poor people and average people hanging. So if we're already quite close to having a perfected system, since we've been one of the wealthiest countries for the longest time, then I think the perfect balance would be just to have the free market, where everyone would balance themselves out by the nature of how things work. It's like, if people in America, like, think about it, like, you have the General Motors, and just like, if they fail, then we could bail them out, or the banks, and therefore that takes away the competition of the small guy. How can a small guy make a bank or make it well if he's going to be fucked out of everything, and then meanwhile the big banks get bailed out? Exactly. The system of the free market will actually balance itself out, and will keep competition and people from never getting excessively wealthy and having corporations get as large as they do now. I mean, think about it. I mean, what? We have Linden's and things just went out of business. Now there's only Bed and Bath and Beyond. And if it was for a free market, I think there'd be so much competition that this would have never got out of hand in the first place. And the wealth of the richest would never have gone out of hand if we had an actual free market. Because there's a natural check and balance system that we have. And I think going socialist is too far sometimes the opposite way, where it's like, corporations, although they can be evil and they can be horrible, they do give us jobs. And if we want to become too socialist, it would just be no competition, stagnation, and pretty much you would just kind of have corporations not want to be in your country if you're too socialist, because they would say, my taxes are 3 times the amount because of the socialism. Why would a corporation want to be here? Or the minimum wage is 3 times the amount. And the too socialist system and the unfree market where the government gets involved also tends to take away a lot of things too, and that's why I think the free market is the perfect balance. I think that it is a centralist idea. I mean, like I said, in America we have the rich and corporate market, and then in places like Sweden you have the middle class, poor people market, and then, I mean, granted, I guess Sweden right now is doing better than America, but I mean, we also have a lot larger country. It's a lot easier to control a country with about 6 million versus 300 million. So I think that for our population, America has done quite well for some time now, and I think that the free market is the answer. It is the balance. It is basically like, think about the government. Every time the government gets involved, they're creating all the problems. So if the government is the problem, why do we need government to fix things? Like, I tend to think of things as the government's the problem. I mean, when we had these wars, I mean, the government funded out people like Osama bin Laden and Saddam. That's the government getting involved. When you have things like Social Security that fail, what is it? The government got involved and it failed. And think about I mean, 175 million people died by their own governments in the last century. And that's just the counted list. It could be quite well double that. If you count all the soldiers that have died in wars because of wars the government got involved with, it could very well be something as close to 1 billion people have died in this last century because of their government's doing. And if the government's a problem, why do we want to have more government? And I mean, I understand where socialists come from, and I also understand where Republicans come from, and I think that both of them want more government. And if the government's the problem, why not have less government? Why not have a free market?